Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Human SOS Show. Hope that many of you will join us today. Anton, once again, is tied up, but he will be back next week. And I appreciate those of you that will join us. And I wanted to let you know that today's session will be a bit abbreviated because with Anton out and I'm on the road, it's going to just be a bit of a challenge, but that's all right. We'll keep things rolling. And reminder to let us know where you're joining from, and be sure and also include comments, questions, because your engagement is as critical as anything on the show. And look forward to having good conversation. And one of the things that, or the thing that we want to talk about today, is that want to talk about some of the sources of stress, looking beyond the symptoms. Welcome, Hawk. Glad to have you with us. A lot of people, unfortunately, when we look at stress in our lives, we tend to focus in on the symptoms, and we need to really consider what are the root causes, as the picture indicates that we've got on the for the show today. That we really need to dig down into those roots, and one of the things that we have done with Perspective Force is we have the stress assessment, and I wanted to uh, let share a bit today about some of the areas that we talk about in the assessment, because the reason I want to share those is that those are indications of some of the things that are at the root of the stress that we're dealing with, and so that we can hopefully get beyond the symptoms. Just like in medicine, we can treat symptoms all day long, but until we figure out what's causing the symptoms, we're going to stay sick. Welcome, Rick. Glad to have you from Kentucky this morning, and appreciate you being here. And so, what I'm going to do is I want to go through, we have three pillars, if you will, as part of evaluating stress and areas to consider. And I'm going to go through the three pillars at a high level, and then we will start digging into each of them. I'm probably focus in on one. My goal is that we'll wrap up today at about 8:30, and but again, feel free to jump in and share your thoughts about what are root causes of stress. Good morning, Sharon. Glad to have you with us this morning from New Jersey. So, the three pillars that we base our stress assessment on is health. Okay. And one thing to mention, though, health is more than just our physical body. And then we have our second pillar is what we call life. And we have areas related to that. And then we have what we call work or leadership. And that's the third pillar of the areas that we find that people are stressed about. And so, in the area of health, there are four topic areas. There's the mind, and then we talk about internal health, which of course is the taking care of the inside more than the outside. And then we have nourishment, and then the other we choose to call movement rather than exercise, because a lot of times when we start talking about exercise plans, everybody rolls their eyes and goes, "Yeah, tried that many times." And so movement is a different approach, so that we are not trying to do for exercise like we do for dieting. Everybody dreads it. And then the area of life as a pillar. Good morning, Zaid. Glad to have you here. And in the life pillar, we talk about identity, and we talk about relationships, talk about life design and legacy. And then we break it down further. Then we have in our work leader area, we have servant leadership, culture, performance management, and change management. So, this is when we talk about stress, this is some of the roots that we dig down into to try to get to the causes, not just get to the, not just deal with the symptoms. Okay, Hawk makes a comment. He says that to me, things that are beyond my control, tech issues when talking at events, for instance. Yeah, those, well, and to your point, Hawk, one of the things that we talk about as part of uh, considering stress and how to approach it is to, ask ourselves a couple of questions. Okay, can I control it? If not, then I move on to the second question. Can I influence it? If not, then we move on and say, I need to let go of this. I need to turn it over, if you will, to, in my case, I say, God, you've got to take care of this because I can't control it and I can't influence it. So I don't need to be losing energy, sleep, whatever over these things. So that is an important part. And then once we start looking at the things that we can control and influence, then we have to dig in and get down to the bottom line of those areas. So today, what I want to do is to, yeah, uh, like Hawk says, the serenity prayer, indeed. That is a kind of a summation of the mindset, and definitely. So let's talk about the life pillar that we get into, because I think this is one we don't think about as having stress in our lives. And I think we miss a lot of this. So let's talk a bit about identity. You know, we are always looking to have identity, and we want to not only have identity, but also to be able to have that identity and rely on it uh, to engage with people. And so when we look at identity, we break that down into some sub areas, and they are vision, and it's important that we have vision for our life, bigger picture. You know, sometimes we'll get business vision, maybe, but quite often we forget that we need life vision. What are we about? You know, our why. And then the next piece that we look at in identity is our values. Sometimes we forget to establish our values both for ourselves and for others because we just get don't get focused on it and deal with the what are our values, the non-negotiables in our life. That's how we determine not to get tossed around by every little change or new idea or whatever, new, especially in the area of principles. And so establishing our values, and this is for as much for ourselves as it is other people. And that becomes very important. Mindset. Developing our mindset helps us because that's what we filter everything through. Mindset and attitude are closely related. And as you know, if you have a negative mindset and you are always focused on what's going wrong or what could go wrong, of course, you're going to uh, likely be very stressed. And so, and what I'm trying to get down with you today is these are some of the root causes that show up symptoms in other ways. Beliefs. Quite often, we do not define our belief system. We kind of rock along and just whatever is the flavor of the day in terms of beliefs, then we begin to kind of hold on to that. And then the next thing comes along, and then we're tracking with that, and so on. And then other area in our identity is messaging. Uh, the messaging that we're talking about here is what we message to ourselves. One of the problems that we have is that we are quite often repeating narratives, telling ourselves messages that are not based in accurate perspective, such as going back to our childhood and some of those messaging, or some instance in our life early on that we continue to allow and believe. Welcome, Shona. Glad to have you here today. So, messaging and how we speak to ourselves is such a key part of defining our identity. And then when we have bad internal messaging, ultimately it's going to lead to stress because we are looking for something that may not ever be, yet we're always trying to get there. Let's see here. Saeed, good morning, Cheryl. Glad to have you with us. Excuse me. Zaid has a question here. Can some people be pre-wired to be negative, and some people more, some positive more than others? Pre-wired, no, I would say no, because I believe that we're all created in the same fashion in terms of not being anxious. Okay, we were just not wired to live in anxiety and to uh, live negatively. That is not what the way we were wired. But because of various circumstances, some people in their lives get so beat up with life that they will develop a negative perspective because they've not had anyone or anything influence them to consider approaching it differently. And as a result, there will be a tendency in some to be more negative or some more positive, depending on factors in their life and how they've dealt with them along the way. Good question, Zaid, because there are some people that seem like that they are pre-wired and that it doesn't matter what happens at all, they're going to go negative, and then some people that will only go positive. I understand your question. Welcome, Wendy. Glad to have you with us. Sorry about last week. Anton and I both were challenged from a work standpoint, so thank you for noting that. And Hawk makes a comment, says we're perfectly created in the image of the divine, then life happens. Yeah, that's kind of where I was going, Hawk, that we are created originally with in the image of our creator, and that image is a perfect one. And so without delving too far into that, but that's where I was going with it. So identity is something that a lot of us don't ever consider as part of a stress factor in our life. So the focus points on in the identity area again are vision, values, mindset, beliefs, and messaging. So if you're experiencing symptoms of stress, maybe that one of these is something that you are especially unconsciously dealing with. Okay, then the next part of this pillar is relationships. And of course, it's popular now to talk about EQ or emotional intelligence. And our responses in this area are very important. And some people, again, are going to be have some more propensity in this direction, depending on what's going on. But what we have to really consider is, are we responding in a logical way, or are we responding with what Anton and I like to talk about, lizard brain? And if we're responding all the time lizard brain, then that's going to ultimately show up as a symptom of stress. Next area that is part of the life pillar is communication. One of the I watch people so often having stress in their life because of poor communication, either an unwillingness to communicate with someone, especially on a real level and personal, or the lack of skill in this area, because communication is a skill and it's something that we need to uh, be more effective in. And especially, we see this in social media, that we get into situations that we get hurt or angry or whatever. And it's not necessarily because the situation warrants it, but because there's a communication breakdown. The another focus area for relationships is mutual respect. Such a key component that we need to, in our life and our relationships, develop mutual respect. And what I see happening here, and is common, and that is that we think mutual respect has to be based on a feeling in regards to someone. And mutual respect is sometimes there's a great feeling that goes with it, but many times it has to be based in a choice, and that goes to our values. And when we think about mutual respect and we look at one another and think, okay, we are all, as we talked about, created with great value, and we can treat each other with that common basis, then mutual respect becomes different. And that involves sometimes, again, just making a choice, because there are times that people, whether it's just in a moment of time or in general behaviors, don't act respectful. And rather than our becoming uh, losing respect, we choose, because of our own values, to still respect other people. We may have to respect the person and not the behavior. And that's a tough one. But if we're going to live in a less stressed life, that becomes a necessity. Let's see here. Zaid makes a comment. He says that communication is very important at home, among friends, social settings, and work. Yeah, communication affects everything. And when we are not effective in communicating with, especially our loved ones, it's so often we work hard on communication in a work environment, but yet we will not communicate well in our family relationships. And it just is sad, because really it's, in my opinion, more important we communicate better with our personal relationships, because those are the people we truly spend most of our time with. And then Sharon goes on to make a comment that mutual respect is a big deal to me. More people ought to learn to respect one another. Instead of being negative and nasty all the time, they should try to be decent to one another and kind. Indeed, Sharon, when we can uh, address mutual respect as part of who we are, what we do, we will lower our stress levels remarkably. And remember, all of these are areas that potentially are roots for that come out in different stress symptoms, and we have to learn how to dig in and find out, because and like in medicine, if we don't get down and figure out what the disease is and treat the disease, we only mask it by taking medicine to deal with symptoms. We're not going to get any better. And it's the same way in these areas of stress. Another relational focus that is a tough one for many is boundaries, and learning how to set those boundaries with people. And I see a lot of people that struggle with this. especially those of us that are real givers and that we really have understood the need, the desire to help people. The other part, though, is we have to learn how to set those boundaries. And that can, saying no can be hard, especially if we're a positive person, because we see no as a negative thing. And let's see. Rick makes a comment. He says, we carry issues from home to work and vice versa. Work and home are very intertwined. You're right, Rick. And that's why, the common or uh, popular way of approaching is work-life balance. And what Anton and I talk about is really needs to be work-life congruence, because you can't live in two separate worlds, uh, not not effectively. People try, and as a result, they end up with stress based on trying to live in two different worlds concurrently or along parallel with each other. It is not a healthy approach. Um, and then the last focus point in the area of relationships is intentionality. So much of our time we spend coasting along, and the result is quite often we spend a lot of our time putting out fires. One of the term or phrase I like to refer to is called the tyranny of the urgent, and we're always running from one fire to the next, and that is, you're talking about a stressful way to be. That is ultimately very high stress. Okay. Hawk makes a comment. He says, the hard thing with respect is that you must give to get. And at the risk of being a bit personal, for me as a monk, being met with interesting comments and approaches. Uh, yeah, we have to give respect to get it. And one of the things, though, is we see a lot of people that are waiting for someone else to give respect before they will give it. And I think if we're wanting to live and manage stress well, we will focus on being the one to offer it first. Um, intentionality is living in the present. We've got to think about, learn from our past, plan for our future, but we have to really live in the present. And when we do not learn how to live in the present, we will always be chasing something that is not there. And we will always be waiting for the next good thing to happen or whatever, or we will live in the past and always be regretting or trying to gain ground or overcome rather than learning from it and moving forward. So, in the last focus area in relationships, intentionality. Welcome, Ed Mario. Glad to have you this morning. The next pillar in the whole life area, and again, this is one that so often, especially early in our life, that we miss, and that's the area of life design. And life design is being intentional in how we approach what we do with our day to day lives. And that's something that we really need to, again, become intentional in regards to. And so the focus points in life design is a life plan. And it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to have every minute of every day planned out to a point that you become rigid and so on. But many people don't have any kind of plan other than maybe a vague notion. And current vernacular, we've got the big dream, but no plan to get there. We're just going along, or we're going to um, our plan is to find somebody that is our picture of success, and we're just going to behave like they do. And that's not life plan. Life plan is being truly intentional in how we move forward and to set up your direction based on vision, based on your values, and so on. And then another part of life design is financial security. And boy, that's a tough one because so many people are just living day to day, paycheck to paycheck. And at some point, addressing financial security and getting some kind of plan is important. And especially as we look at our financial security, consider it in light of our values, not in light of cultural values, not in light of, as we used to say, keeping up with the Joneses. You know, what is important and what is your values? And then you look at your finances in context of that. Next focus point in the life design area is having fun or doing things to lighten your daily living. Those are important. Sometimes under the guise of being, you know, on in the grind and always trying to make a better future and so on, we forget to stop and enjoy life, have fun, laugh. And this is especially important with your family. And so as we look at life design, another focus area is being intentional in the area of our family. And by the way, before we get jobs and after we've stopped having jobs, family is always somebody that we've got to deal with. And some say, well, I've just have disowned my family. Well, the act of disowning your family is a stressor in itself, and it will stay stressful for a long time as a result. And so, really consider uh, working on healthy relationships. And let's see here. Ed Mario makes a comment. He says exactly. He says that is the focus and objective as a goal. And so appreciate that support, Ed Mario. So we've talked down in life design. The last area as part of life design is our career. See, some people want to make career their life. And unfortunately, that's a wrong priority. We should have our life design, and career is a sub part of that. And when our life design is tied up in our career only, boy, that is a real formula for stress. Let's see here. Hawk makes a comment, says, very true. And create. After this, I will make a song to celebrate my ex wife's birthday today. Okay. So, finding ways to be joyful and have fun is important. Now, if all you ever do is try to have fun, that creates a whole nother set of problems. And we have to avoid that. And let's see. Ed Mario comments, he says that communications help to develop creativity, stimulates creative thinking, and openness to change. It makes us able to exercise our ability to argue and contest. Analogies help us bring to light important ideas for solution. Yeah, there's a number of different ways to approach communication, and our communication can also help us in the area of being creative and having some fun. Um, yeah, maybe this could be a theme towards for a book. Zaid, have to consider that. And the last area, and I'm gonna go through this quickly because we're winding down for our abbreviated session today. And this is the one again that gets overlooked: legacy. We all in the back of our mind have thoughts about our legacy. Even when it's not in the forefront, it's churning in the back of our mind. And if we aren't really mindful of our legacy, it will cause stress. And it's one of the more sneaky ones at causing stress. And the focus points of legacy is our family. And that means helping my family in their life and their direction, their legacy, and then friends. And that means, as part of our legacy, helping friends be able to find their goals and other areas and help them move along in life. And then one of the things that, especially as we get older, is memorials or footprints. What am I leaving behind? How am I going to be remembered? And when we don't consider that as part of how we behave, and ultimately you get to a point where you come to towards the end of your life and you're going, oh my, I am going to pass from this earth, and I'll just be if a memory at all, a very distant memory, and I have not impacted the world behind me or around me. The other one is community. And this is such an important thing because this is part of how we are truly created and wired. And that is community and the opportunity, the choices to be a part of our community, which means helping others in our community and giving back. And those are all part of our legacy concept. And then the last focus point in legacy area is eulogy. What will people want to say about me when I'm gone? And wondering, we have these values, we have life plans, and all of these things in place. But then the question is, are we living in accordance with that? And will that ultimately be how we are remembered? And so all of these are root causes that will drive stress in our life. And if we're not aware of these and considering these, then we are probably not addressing stressors in our life that are at the root of things that cause symptoms. For example, in our excuse me, our life design, if we've got problems in our life design, the way that shows up is conflict in our family. Or if we have areas of identity problems, we and not living consistently with our values. Sorry for the background noise, everybody. Uh, in a ho- I'm in a hotel room in another part of the state, so sorry about that. But if we are not living in accordance with our values, that's going to create a real conflict internally, and it will create such levels of stress. So, again, look at the root causes rather than dealing with just the symptoms. And one way to help with this, by the way, is to take the assessment that we have on our website, because this assessment goes into helping you consider all of these different areas, especially if you take the second level. The first level is focused and based in these tiers and the pillars. But when we get into the deeper assessment, you go into all of these areas that I've just shared. And this is just in the life area. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate you all being here. Glad that we had the time together, and just really appreciate your comments, and always gain from you on here. And I look forward to next week when we've got uh, uh, Anton back, because Anton just brings so much. Yeah, I understand, Zaid. We hear it sound like that siren. We look out the window to see what's going on. So thanks, everyone. God bless you. I appreciate you. And again, we'll be back next week, and we'll see you then. Thanks. Talk to you later. Have an amazing rest of your week. Bye.